Hello, and welcome to the Vassals of Kingsgrave podcast, where today we'll be discussing the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, episode 5 of season 1, In the Name of the Mother. This is our quick review. While the series is ongoing, we'll have coverage after it's over as well. My name's Kevin, Nuncle Kevin on the Discord, and I'm joined by Stephanie,
Steph for gsdg on the forum.
Jock,
Jock, also Jock.
Michael,
Khal Wadege on Discord.
Hannah, and Zander.
Hail, it's Zander, the Lord Baron.
The dulcet tones of Zander the Lord Baron.
And you're listening to Blackfyre WXAV.
Well, our traditional routine, mass liturgy, whatever you want to call it, is that we start with lemon cakes for each episode. So we'll do lemon cakes in the same order to start us out of 5 lemon cakes or a trial of 7 or 14 more fighters. I don't really care. Give us your ratings, Stephanie.
I only saw it once, but I'd have to say my initial gut reaction would be like 3 lemon cakes. I found like some of the like dunk injuries during the fight sequence repetitive. I found the flashback rather saccharine, but also with Sir Arlen, or I'm sure the portrayal of Sir Arlen will be discussed because I think a lot of us were expecting something more uplifting here. But maybe I'd change my mind if I saw it the second time. I don't know. Oh yeah, no green apple.
Fair points all. Jock?
I wasn't that big a fan of the flashback. I feel like the battle was great. I would have preferred to have seen like the various perspectives in the fight rather than flashback. But the Vader scene was pretty much perfect though. Exactly how I remembered it in the book.
All right. Michael, call with Wadege.
I'd give it 3.5 out of 5. I've seen it once, except I saw the final death scene and I suffered and saw it one more time because I just really enjoyed it. It was very good, but also very frustrating at the same time, so I feel a bit conflicted overall.
Hannah.
Yeah, I just watched it the once, which I think is funny for me. I kind of want to give it separate lemon cake ratings because I feel like the episode's bisected with the flea bottom sequence. For that, I would say I didn't really need it, but I've read the book, so I personally, what it did for me, I'll give it like a 3.5. Was it the worst thing committed to television or this series so far? No. The battle, I would give up like a 4.5 because I feel like it's not very long in the book, and I do feel like they hit all of the beats of it. They augmented it a little bit, obviously, and how many how many times can he get stabbed? It's like McCall's been going off on this cold hands theory on the chat channel, which if you haven't joined us yet on Discord, please do so because great things happen there. And at this point with that theory and him getting up, it's like he's a white. It's like, it is known. So that, yeah, it got a little silly. And I think she also had mentioned the get up, it was stirring the first time, and then it kind of lost meaning after that. So I think with the showrunners kind of literally beating some dead horses here in places. That just they can kind of relax and rely on the source material a little more heavily, hopefully for Sworn Sword, and not feel pressure to do all these additive things, and just let the source material speak for itself is my hope. But also, if we don't end up getting that, I'm here for it. I think it's fine.
All right. And Zander?
I watched it 100 times. I'm the one HBO's worried about. But I actually only did watch it the once. I was gonna rewatch it earlier today when I was doing dishes, but I decided I'd rather talk to you guys and then do a rewatch. Feel like I'd appreciate it maybe more. But overall, I think I'd give it a solid 4 out of 5 lemon cakes. While I feel the flea bottom scenes did go on a little too long, I wasn't entirely mad about it.
All right. I'm glad you weren't too mad. Gets scary out in the world when Zander gets mad.
I guess it is a little bit of like world building, that because there's a gap between the Dance with Dragons and this that we as book readers know, but just show watchers maybe wouldn't. So I guess it does kind of help to build the world of, post-war Blackfyre Rebellion times, like these are the times, and give a little bit of context of where Dunk comes from, that maybe if you're not a book reader, you don't fully understand. We spend limited time in Flea Bottom in a Game of Thrones, so I can kind of see that. I guess it's justifiable that way.
I can see that. Personally, I'm gonna give it, I think, 3 lemon cakes out of 5. This is the first episode that I struggled to watch and I wasn't fully enraptured by. I think every other episode I've watched 3 to 4 times easily without having to force myself to pay attention. When I hosted episode 3, I rewatched that one multiple times and it was so easy to sit there and take notes. It was a delight to do that. This one, I just got kind of bored of it, to be honest. And part of it, I knew what was coming, but maybe just the fact that it's a battle and kind of know all the beats of it, and the changes they made weren't that exciting, left me kind of going meh at the end of this episode. We have a new voice just in time to give her lemon cakes.
Hello, Bina 007 here. Sorry I'm late. I would give everything that involves the contemporary story in the battle 12 out of 7. And I would give everything that was flashback probably 1 out of 7. And it probably averages at 7 out of 7. But in general, I just found that all a bit boring. And I think probably when the series is all done and I go back and watch it, I think arguably this could have had an episode less. I think they've kind of maybe stretched it out 1 episode too much and there's too much derping around. But love the battle. Totally love the badass scene at the end with Baylor, who's just so cool. Love that actor. And continue to just be delighted by this show. I don't remember reading it at all. So everything, apart from the fact who Egg was, I didn't remember who survived the battle. I knew Baylor was going to die. So everything to me is just utter delight and surprise.
Unsullied. Go for it.
I think it's interesting you saying that, Bina, that you don't remember reading it at all. So I bought the illustrated Knight of the Seven Kingdoms that has all 3. And I think I read it, the whole thing, back to back twice. And I will say, as far as it having too many episodes, I think you're right, except for them sort of justifying their budget for Sworn Sword. I think they'll need that much time, if not maybe a little bit more. I feel like Sworn Sword is the meat in the sandwich between a Hedge Knight and Mystery Knight. and you get a lot in there. At least I did. It's my favorite of the three. So it could be just, a way of establishing this is our budget when we're making this series. And if that's the case and they do Sworn Sword Justice, and then I'm happy to deal with all this derping around.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting a taste of what it must have been like for Game of Thrones viewers who had no book rage. But in general, I remembered the book very fondly. I will go back and read it after this, but I feel like this is a very weird time we're living through, and I just need something joyous. I need something with good people and people like Dunk who choose to believe in good people, even against all evidence to the contrary, maybe in the case of Arlen. And I know book Arlen and TV Arlen are very different, but I feel this is the show. It's like, I don't know, maybe it's like what Schitt's Creek was for me in first lockdown. It's the show I needed at the time I needed it. And I'm just, this was actually, I'm surprised. IMDb says this is the best ever episode of any Martinverse TV, because this was my worst episode just because of the flashbacks. So, but I'm still delighted.
Yeah, I was going to bring that point up, that this is like a 9.9 on IMDb. It's interesting to talk to different people. My dad is an Unsullied and was texting me during this episode. And as soon as the flashback hit, he was like, I hate flashbacks. I hate every flashback all the time. And then when the episode ended, he still loved it. I have no idea how this would be the best episode of the Martinverse.
Well, maybe just because the ending is so cool, right? And I think that if you're minded to love a show, maybe this is a comment on love in general, you'll forgive it anything. And if you're minded to be irritated by a show, you will be irritated by everything, right? And I think that in the context of an experience that most people have been loving, I think you can forgive a lot. But if the next episode has a little pointless meandering flashback, I'll be unhappy. This is like a free pass one, I think.
Yeah. The problems that I've had with this episode would probably be significantly lessened if you watched it binging. So, as we've been discussing the entire time, that this will probably be a better binge series than weekly watch. But we're just not at that point in time.
And I kind of wonder about this series as a whole. So I was kind of thinking, as we talked about Sir Arlen, maybe their point in showing him as this sort of broken dude, but then having this one redemptive moment where he protects Dunk and remembers his vows, is just to show how horrible the Blackfyre rebellions were as we learn more about them in subsequent seasons. Maybe that's kind of their take, is we'll get some more of Arlen in his more chivalrous era. We'll see his nephew die at some point, and see kind of how broken he was when Dunk came along. It'd be nice to maybe also see how having Dunk as a squire helped him feel redeemed a little bit, at least for some stretch of time, but we'll see if that happens.
So after watching this episode, when you had perhaps the greatest opportunity for course correction regarding Sir Arlen, I stand by my original assessment that his character was essentially ruined for comedic value, comic relief. And we're left now to judge whether those hilarious laugh out loud moments in the previous episodes was worth it.
It was. And actually, because I've not been on any of these prior episodes, and I must confess, some of them I didn't listen to because you guys were all just so negative. In defense of fart jokes, right? I love a fart joke. I love a person or a horse taking in incongruous shit. Maybe it's because I'm British or of a certain age. I was raised on Benny Hill. We like crude humor. And it's part of what I love about the show. And like, even in the last episode, when everyone's like, oh, it was perfect, apart from when that guy stood up in the Captain, my Captain bit and farted. I loved it because I had not read the books. I don't remember. Well, I have read the books. I don't remember them, so it's irrelevant. And when Dunk's giving his big speech, I fell for it. I thought, God, this guy, who is this guy who's standing up, who's been moved by his speech? And then he farts. And then I was let down and I was like, oh, God, no. And then Baylor came, I was like, yes, like, I just want to say that I know that that's not fashionable in our Discord, but I do think the humor's worth it because I think it's making a point. This is a different aspect of this universe, and it's a medieval time. It is a crude time, and I'm here for the fart jokes. I just wanted to say that. For all the people out there listening who feel a little bit embarrassed, don't be embarrassed about liking fart jokes. They're valid.
I don't know if that was a fart noise, Hannah, or if your mic disconnected.
It was supposed to be a fart noise. Thought it'd be funny to punctuate that with a fart
Oh,
joke.
someone needs to add that in editing and Foley.
Yeah, it sounded like someone was killing Daffy Duck.
Yeah, and that's also that would be really funny. I would watch that in a cartoon, and I just think I'm exposing myself as a very crude person. But House of the Dragons is so fucking po-faced and serious and
Yeah.
boring. And just like sometimes just have Egg ask if it's unusual to have hair coming out of his stones. Just have a fart joke. There's nothing wrong with it. Just
Are
go
there
with
no
it.
true shitheads among you?
Oh, since you mentioned, so how did you feel, Bina, about you know, just Egg discussing three-fingered Alice in the
Oh, that
body
was
song?
just like the fucking funniest scene on the face of the planet. Like this poor little earnest little boy, maybe it was her talent and maybe she worked hard at it. And it's a story of a resilient young girl. And I was just, oh, bless you, Ed. Bless you. You will be a good king. So I just thought that was absolutely genius writing and so well delivered. I feel sorry for the kid, right? He shouldn't be uttering that dialogue at that age. They should have been able to like AI that in, right? I mean, we're in the age of AI, but yeah, like I'm here for it. I think the balance is right. There's just a little, and it's just enough to give me a chuckle.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just been the way that it's come at weird times in the show, or that it's. I
Yeah.
think the first one where they were more or less like breaking the fourth wall didn't feel. I don't know. That didn't feel right for what they were going for with the show and what the earnestness of the show. I agree. They're having some of like, especially the ones that are kind of like back and forth with Dunk and Egg, because that feels natural to their relationship. So then the little jokes. I mean, the woof. I think you know, Dunk saying woof to Egg and Egg saying it back right before the trial was so. I mean, it was cute, and I chuckled at both of those. Like, so I think when the moment's right in the show, I agree with it. Um, I don't know that it's always been the right moment for those laughs when they've done it.
Yeah, I agree. Going back to like Sir Arlen, the Sir Arlen problem. I may be way overthinking this, but I could see where they're sort of using him in the flashbacks as a device to, and I think I might have said this on the last recording, fill in for the audience some of Dunk's italicized internal monologues. They are short and clipped, but really impactful of how he views himself and his worthiness. And it's sprinkled heavily throughout this first of the trilogy. And I could see where they're doing a show rather than tell. And that part of it, I don't really mind so much if they're using Sir Arlen as a way to show Dunk's ever vanishing self-confidence and self-worth and doubt. And I will say also, I think even the flashback itself could be bisected into two parts. I did enjoy the post King's Landing part of that segment where he is following Sir Arlen for so long. I thought that was really meaningful, and I didn't mind the length of that.
Essentially, before the flashback, the only things that happen are we see Baylor Breakspear give his speech, sort of a little bit of strategy, which we can revisit after we talk about the flashback. And then we see Dunk take the initial tilt and get stabbed in the abdomen. And then we see this flashback of Dunk in King's Landing, which starts with Dunk and his teenage love interest, Rafe, and they're looting dying bodies from a battle just outside of King's Landing. That seems really unclear what that might have been at the time. They're doing that in order to secure enough goods to sell things and go to the free cities. They find out that they don't have enough. They also have some interactions with gold cloaks who look a lot dirtier and scummier than we see in House of the Dragon. So there's a nice little bit of world building. And Rafe steals from the Gold Cloak. Gold Cloak catches them. There's a fight. Sir Arlen steps up to save Dunk after Rafe is killed. And then we just see Dunk following Sir Arlen until eventually Dunk succumbs to an injury he had suffered in that fight, and not succumbs, but he falls over, and Sir Arlen tells him to get up. More or less what happened in the flashback. Go to town.
The impression that this was the place they were looting was meant to be the Battle of Redgrass Fields. Now, obviously, as book purists, we know that the Redgrass Field takes place in the Riverlands, not within eye shot of King's Landing. But the way the blacksmith says we've been raiding that tomb forever, and the fact that they put up what is Blackfyre insignia leather or whatever. That was my impression, that this is tying them directly to Redgrass Field, Daemon's Rebellion, which is mentioned as being just over.
Yeah, I wasn't really big on that, but
I can look past a detail like that for the sake of world building, where again they're keen to establish what the Blackfyre rebellions were, how much of an impact it's had on the populace of King's Landing and such. I can. There are other things I cannot look past, but this one I can give a blind eye to. That's fine.
yeah, and like what I did like about since they went for that, I did like that they had a goal in mind of 2 silver stags to pay for their crossing to the free cities. But I think it is implied that because the Redgrass happened, that there's been a major spike in demand for people to go to the free cities to take exile. So that just completely, or that I did appreciate them folding that into realizing they didn't have enough money.
Sorry, did you say exile?
Exile.
Egg?
Oh, did you want an egg pun? Okay.
Stephanie was not amused.
Oh, sorry. No, I just didn't.
Sorry.
Compute for a second. Sorry.
Well,
no, because you said you had a lot of audio problems, so I was just like.
Okay. I bet she suddenly roasted me so hard. All right. So I did like that they had a couple gold cloaks and they were kind of operating independently and scummy, and I liked that a lot because we've seen the foundation of the gold cloaks when they were harsh, but I would say an orderly bunch under Prince Daemon 100 years later. Then we've seen them in Game of Thrones as well. So they're kind of a through line where in Game of Thrones they're scummy at the top and fully corrupt and can be bought and all those things. So it's interesting to see we're sort of in the middle of those 2 points, and the Gold Cloaks are maybe not as disciplined. They're, there's some people, that are just hanging out in Flea Bottom, and they care more about their own pockets and what they want, and are, doing pretty terrible things.
I liked the detail that the gold cloak that was the main antagonist to Dunk and Rafe, that he was missing a hand. You can imagine that, maybe he was part of the host of some other lord during the main Blackfyre rebellions, but because of his injury that he was given a post in the gold cloaks. But it is that kind of world building that allows you to imagine that people have lives outside of.
Yeah. And there's just been a war, right? So
right.
Regardless of which side he's on, there's going to be a lot of people missing digits and limbs and such. Other thoughts on the flashback?
I really liked how oppressive Flea Bottom felt. You really do feel at the bottom of the hill, where the buildings are so crowded atop of you that you can barely see, the castle atop it.
Back to war. that goes right into it that made them feel they're going down. They're to live below flea bottom. They're so poor. That was nice.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that they like had a hovel or like a little hole, but I was also like, what even is this? Like it's just carved out of the ground. It has a grate above it.
It's like the apartment in Parasite.
Yes. That is a fair comparison.
Hey, it's a half basement apartment in a prime location.
Yeah. Then from Flea Bottom we see Dunk following Sir Arlen while he's injured. In that phase, one, it's the first time we see Dunk just like overcoming something that would kill a lesser man. There's a very wide open wound that seems like a high chance of infection. Two, Sir Arlen is singing, talking in Dothraki.
I kind of just imagined, like we see in the mainline series, the one Dothraki with the bloody mummers. So I kind of just assumed, being a hedge knight, he either in the war or in selling his sword, he was with some Dothraki, and the Dothraki taught him songs or something.
Was it Dothraki or Valyrian?
The subtitle said Dothraki.
Oh.
It seemed like Dothraki. It kind of had the harsh way that Daenerys talked when she spoke it. Thought that was cool. I figure if you make up a language for a universe, you might as well find excuses to use it. Overall, I get what folks are saying that this wasn't as redemptive of Sir Arlen as they would have liked. I kind of took it the other way. I really took it as like he's this guy that has been beaten down pretty hard by the world, but at his core, like in the moment, he will defend the innocent. Like that's part of his nightly vow that he just can't let go.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And isn't it a greater, more honourable, more noble act from someone who isn't the person that Dunk remembers, but understandably does remember him in idealized light because he did save him? But isn't it the greater act of nobility when it comes from a person who is a bit crude and shoddy and enormously donged and beaten up by life? It strikes me as I wonder if what they're going for is to make it analogous to Baylor and all the interviews that Bertie Carvel has said about Baylor Breakspear is that we think of him as this potential great man and potential great king after the fact because we know how things ended up. But in the moment,
Yeah.
he's just a guy. He's just a Targ looking at a girl. No, he's just a Targaryen, right? And he's making decisions in the present tense in the moment and how he likes to act. And I think why his acting is so good is because actually he doesn't know which way he's going to go until he does it. Like, does he really know he's going to go up against his brother and his nephew? But no, something at his core, no matter how pragmatic and political he is, says, nah, this doesn't sit well with me. The right thing to do is to step in with Dunk. And I think maybe with Arlen, it's the same. It's not even that thinking. It's just an instinctive, this cannot stand, this will not stand. I need to step in here. And I think in the case of Arlen, I know people have got real issues with how he's portrayed. Maybe what the writers are trying to say is sometimes the best and noblest act come from the most unlikely places, and the more unlikely the place, the greater the blessing of that
It's
act.
very similar to the story of the widow with her 2 pennies in the gospel, where her 2 pennies as an offering were worth way more than anyone else's because it was all she had to give, is kind of what it reminds me of. And I do think like there's a little bit of shades of like Robert Baratheon in Arlen's portrayal. Robert was this drunkard at the end, but he had started out as this really noble person. And I think it's also indicative of hedge knights are more likely to be truly noble because they're not lords. They're not entitled to their knighthood, and they're not sellswords. They're not in it for the money. Right.
No, it's almost like a vocation, right? Yeah, they're literally doing it because they're like the sort of, well, in England, maybe not in America, health professionals are paid very poorly. So you do it because you love it, because you want to be a nurse, right? And I think that's, to me, that's the romance of being the hedge knight. It's a vocation. It truly is a vocation to protect the weak and, to be a pillar of strength. And I think there's something really wonderful. I think this is why I love Dunk, because I think a lot of Dunk's naivete is a naivete that I aspire to and wish I had, because I think there's something in admiring that and looking for it, maybe even where it doesn't exist, that I think is to be applauded in a way. Whereas some people call him and
I
think of
agree.
him as stupid. I think there's something
something in the
heroic in that.
book that you feel a little more than the show, but I think this is maybe where the show is going, that you feel this sense that Dunk inspires people. Like, and you
Yeah.
see it with Steely Pay a lot in the book, and I think the book maybe hammers that just a copper for you a little better than the show. The show kind of, they did it, but I felt like maybe that might have been a moment for some sappy music. Like,
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think you're spot on. I think he brings the best out of Egg. He brings the best out of CDP. And I think maybe some of what Baylor decides to do is in reference to just seeing Dunk come in so innocently naive. Does no one remember Sir Arlen? He was a good, like, how can you not fall for someone that genuinely earnest? And I think earnestness is incredibly, it inspires you to do better. And I think that's the thing that I think Bertie Carvel was trying to say about Baylor and his decision. Like, yeah, he's basically, I mean, he's better than me. He's better than a lot of them. He's by no means perfect, but he's inspired to be better than he is in that moment. I think you're spot on, Kevin.
With Dunk, it's like, as far as his earnestness goes, and it's mirrored in Sir Arlen, where Arian is obviously a cynical shit. So is Maekar. He's entitled and cynical. And Baylor, I think probably, he's astute too. So he's researched like his namesakes and things and their nobility, and has made an effort to live up to that and be the Prince of Dragonstone and bring meaning back to the Targaryen name, power back to the three-headed dragon in a dragonless world. And I think Arlen is a lot like that, where obviously he's gone, at least show Arlen, he's gone through some things that have made him cynical and have disturbed him. And he's, just a wine-soaked mess, but he's still this noble person and a study of human resilience. And that is effectuated in the show with Dunk's character. It's like, that's the man that raised him. And we don't get a lot in the book. It's very brief, because I mean, all you get is like Sir Arlen found him in the wine sinks and alleys of Flea Bottom. He had never known his mother and father. That's about all the history you get from Flea Bottom in the book. So there is an opportunity to fill in a lot of it. And I think it's okay for the showrunners to fill those gaps in, because you can walk that backward from look at who Dunk is and look at who raised him. Now, who's that person? They must be a good person.
My issue with this is that we do actually have a little more information from the books of his time in Flea Bottom. We know that he was like a feral kid. He had a trio of friends, and he describes himself as the worst among them. And one of my problems with this flashback is that Dunk is basically the same character that he is in modern times. There is no change in him. And one of the major themes of the Hedge Knight is the circumstances in which you are raised affects the kind of character you are. So the implication here is that Dunk became a good person and a moral person from his tutelage with Sir Arlen. And an uncharitable take is that he became a good person in spite of it. And it just feels like such a major theme that we're going to get next episode with. I bet Arion never slept in a ditch, and I bet Daron only ate rare steaks. And it just concerns me that they made a deliberate choice to go against what we have for reasons.
Yeah, that's a shame, actually. I didn't realise or remember that. And given that they spent so much time derping around in his childhood, then pre-Arlen, then yeah, you could have made a nice contrast. But I want.
I would, if I was writing this, I would have had him be in one of those like wine sinks where they make the kids fight each other, and we see him.
I don't know. I tell you what, I think maybe this is I just feel like I'm talking now in the light of having read Wuthering Heights today. I wonder if there's a softening of the character of Dunk, and that Dunk being this very beloved, wonderful, pure-hearted protagonist, it would then be jarring to the viewer to take us back to a recap where you saw him beating the shit out of people and being an errant rogue before Arlen's tutelage. I think having had this many episodes of people falling in love with his goofy stupidity and naivete, maybe that would have been a bit jarring. I'm trying to think how I would have felt if that's what I had been presented with in the recap. And I think rather than bored, I would have been like, oh, no, not my Dunk, not hashtag not my Stannis. I don't know. This is a much more simplistic two-dimensional show than that. And maybe that's the problem that you all have with it, but I'm living for it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Michael, I still think it can be deduced that sometimes people teach you how to be by showing you how not to be. So I think it's, again, show to book's never going to translate 100% perfectly, and I think it's a case of two things can be true at the same time, where Sir Arlen's tutelage is meaningful.
You have to be uncharitable to sort of make these bad faith takes, but it is some dissonance between what we're being shown and what we're being told, and just from a future perspective, this does concern me in terms of the writing skill of these directors, because there is going to come a time.
Because I think that, in a sense, whatever Arlen taught Dunk, that source moment of being rescued, I think maybe trumps all. And you see that, don't you, in sort of love stories and things where you're just like, what is that person doing? And then, but there is some kind of text, there's some kind of like dominant moment of impression forming that's so dominant. And that even if every other example that Arlen set him was a bit feckless, that this one moment of charity and protection became his gospel. And that's enough. But I see your problem. Like, I'm not saying that I disagree with anyone who has an issue with the fart jokes and the Arlen change. I'm just saying that I see the other side. I get it. I get why you would have problems, and I guess we voyage hopefully and see where we get to.
Yeah, I get the, like, he, like, Dunk idolizing Sir Arlen because he was the one person who's ever, like, the one adult who ever protected him in any sense. But it is a little hard to square that with, like, what Dunk ascribes to Sir Arlen, and like, I was someone who was, just like holding out until now to see, or to, like, willing to wait and see about, like, what they were doing with Sir Arlen and he didn't, and Sir Arlen, I don't think I needed him to be nurturing like Dunk is with Egg in episode 3. But I needed a little more than this.
A little more balance, just so you don't have to do the work in your head.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think that, as I said before, if you're going to give this much real estate to the flashback, then this was the chance to really make Arlen more than the little comedic, crude moments that we'd had up until now. This would have been the chance to give more three-dimensionality to it. So I see that.
Like, instead of telling him to get up, seeing a hand would have gone a long way. Like, I think that would have been a great visual cue of rough exterior, but there's a diamond in the rough with him. I got the vibes that there was more coming with Sir Arlen this episode. Like, I got the vibes that as we learn about him losing his nephew, we've had they've alluded to that. I got the vibes that they're gonna give him some more, maybe even pre-Dunk time, and certainly some more time of the good years of their fellowship, their friendship. The other thing I want to add real quick, I got maybe vibes of like the Hound, like they kind of wanted to make him seem like the Hound, where he had a good interior, but a lot of shit had happened to him, and that's why he could be gruff on the outside, and that Dunk cuts through that. But maybe, like Michael said, I'm doing a lot of work of my own with that interpretation.
Yeah, I find myself vacillating quite a bit. Like the more I think about the show, my initial reaction is more or less favorable, and then the more I think about it, I start to make more excuses for it, which I don't know if that's a wholly bad thing, but I do think it comes from like wanting to enjoy it so much. And Michael, to your point, I definitely share your concerns for the future. I I just really want to see them get their shit together for Sworn Sword and make it right because it's the best one. But we'll see. If Dunk's not wearing a straw hat in the opening scene, I'll probably put my fist through my television.
Vacillating of Kingsgrave.
Yeah. Well, I and to your point, Kevin, about like the get up thing, I suppose if they were trying to draw the conclusion that it's Dunk's voice screaming get up, but in his delirium of having his bell rung, he's hearing it as Sir Arlen's voice. That's something meaningful, but you're right. It's like they don't commit hard to one thing or another in some of these more ambiguous aspects of the storytelling. I had a question for Michael. Michael, do we get that in Hedge Knight about him having the two friends, or is that in Sworn Sword?
It's either in Sworn Sword or the Mystery Knight. I think it's in the
Okay,
Sworn Sword because he talks about
I
how
think it's
he's
in the
never
Sworn
talked
Sword
to a
too.
girl before, which is like Rohan adjacent.
I'm fairly
Yeah,
certain. Fairly certain it has to do with the at the beginning of the Sworn Sword with the executed criminals. That he
because I
sees
was
that
like,
and
I
he thinks about
remember
the
that being
head
in
and
the
kicking
Hedge
it
Knight. I
around.
was rifling through it, and I was confused. But I know that you're more the authority academic than I am. So it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, but
It's definitely not in the Hedge Knight. I can see that.
yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't tripping.
The I started listening to the Sworn Sword yesterday a little bit, and I can't remember if the line about Dunk being the worst of three is there, but that is when he seeing those criminals at the beginning is when he thinks about some flea bottom things. But I think there's also a decapitated person at the beginning of the Mystery Night, and he that also as well gets him thinking about those things.
I think in the Mystery Knight, that's when we get the tale about the head, and they threw
Yeah,
it into a bowl of
Yeah.
brown and other fun things. I'm getting
yeah.
hungry.
So at the end of the flashback, we have Sir Arlen telling Dunk to get up, and then the battle is on. We see Dunk getting out of the mud. Um, we see a lot of fighting with Arian, which is beat wise relatively accurate to the book. Arian gets a few more stabs in. We learn that Dunk probably only has one functioning kidney after this fight, but it gets down into the mud. While Dunk's in the mud, he sees Baylor take a blow as he's fighting with Makar. Um, we see we see Dunk eventually win a brawl in the mud. Arian yields, and Dunk drags him in front to the viewing platform where Arian withdraws his accusation for all to see. From there, we have the scene of Dunk post battle with Steely Pate, and Sir Raymond tending to him. Baylor shows up, saves Dunk with a word from having hot oil poured into his wound, and then Baylor is helped out of his helmet and falls as his exposed brain falls out.
Bertie Carvel is such a good actor. Such a good actor. That's
He
all I
did
want to
so
say.
much with so little. It was really great. Like,
His whole performance has been so understated, so calm, even in death. Like, just seeing him kind of figure it out from the reactions of others. And just as the helmet comes off, this is a guy who is, I mean, like, he was in Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, like, but in general, he's a theatre actor, a very serious theatre actor, like National Theatre, Royal Shakespeare Company in the UK, and you can just the quality. I would posit people like Diana Rigg. We've had amazing actors in the whole Martinverse, like really the creme de la creme. Is he the actual technically finest actor we've had in this universe? I would posit maybe yes.
I don't know. That kid that plays Dunk is like, he's going places.
He's going places, but as a technical craftsman, a craftsman of theatre, a craftsman of acting, I think Bertie Carvel.
I would just like to give a quick shout out to the makeup department in this episode. Elisa Chow, Kat Coogan, Katrina Doran, Rachel Gordon, Anna Knight, David McKinney, Morgan Rafferty. Fucking fantastic job with that black eye, man. Every time it cut back to Dunk, it was getting like bigger and bigger. And it was the attention to detail on that was amazing. And I mean, it like you're wincing looking at it. It was beautifully done. Very masterful craftsmanship.
inspired by Hannah, I will give a shout out of not quite so honorable to the sound effects department during, and I don't know any of their names, but during the battle, they really emphasized these like squishy sound effects when Dunk is getting stabbed. And as you said, Kevin, yeah, he's he's been stabbed like 21 times. Which of his organs are still functioning? I know he has a death fake out, obviously, but I just found that funny.
It's genuinely the first bit of fighting that I've seen in a long time that felt like real, painful, stakes, physical, visceral. We've never had that, right? And it's a weird juxtaposition because in a show that in general is a bit softer and kinder than House of the Dragons and Game of Thrones in tone. And yet here it is making no bones about how fucking brutal this is. And I thought that was appropriate and right. It's just, and at some point you've got to see Duncan's strength and Duncan's physicality. But it's so well
I did
done,
like
I
the
think.
point of view shot from the helmet with just the visor slit. That was good.
Yeah, and even that, there's attention to detail because the first time he gets hit, it changes from there. It is crumpled more. And it's like subtle, and it's not this broad view of the trial by seven. Like, I was kind of hoping for at least one like crowd, like from the POV of the stands, seeing the whole field. But in place of that, we got all these subtle, detail-oriented bits that made it feel really real from the point of view that we do get in the book, which is Dunk's. There's 5 pages that this battle spans, and it's all from his POV essentially. So I did enjoy that, and well done to them for those little nuggets. And yeah, it was really brutal and raw, and I like when it's more real and not super choreographed. You know what I mean? Like where you just, it's like, oh God, it's so choreographed and it doesn't feel.
Yeah, I go back and forth a little bit on that part of it. I think I would have liked to see Arian's treachery a bit more. From the books, I very much got the vibes he was willing to fight dirty. He even, after he yields in the books, makes a pretty clear attempt to act like he didn't. Whereas this seems like he yields and then Dunk immediately drags in. I would have liked to see maybe Dunk get off him and then he attempts another stab.
And then he drags him over. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think that was an important plot point on that character that they left out.
They toned down Arian from the get-go, though, because he doesn't snap Tancel's finger. He tries to force himself upon her. And they decided to shy away from that. So I think they're relying on the fact that if you're here
Mhm.
for this, you've been along for the ride of GOT and House of the Dragon, and you've seen, Damien and Damon, and like you get that some of them are fuckers,
Yeah, I think we bring a lot of baggage, don't we, to that Targ name. Can I ask a question? Don't laugh at me. This is a Varley. Oh God, new people question. Is it that Makor maced his brother in the back of the head? And if so, are we meant to think he did it deliberately because he's pissed off that he went against his son, or deliberately because he's like, I'll be one step closer to the throne? Or was it just it's the heat of the battle, you're on the opposing side, I've got a mace, off you go? All of the above, maybe. I don't know.
So in the book, in the next discussion that we'll see next episode, if you're okay with being spoiled, Unsullied Bina, he admits that he doesn't remember that it was most likely his mace that did it, but he did not remember actually ever making a blow that would have done that damage. So I think we're supposed to take him at his word on that. It doesn't seem like he's being dishonest in that moment. He actually talks about how he feels bad that his nephew that's now going to have to go to the throne at a young age, but that he thinks he can do it. So I don't think there's ever the intention that he did it, and he knows he'd be seen as a kinslayer for this, and it's not the route that he'd want to go.
Gods know it isn't true, but they'll call me Kinslayer to the day I die. I really want that line next to Steven's name.
Yeah, no, I think he loves, as keeping with the pattern of difficult brotherly relationships in House Targaryen, that he does love his brother, and he didn't envy his throne, but or at least to the point of attempted actual murder. But at the same time, this was part of the strategy. It is trial by combat, and as Baelor says, let me deal with the Kingsguard. They're never gonna. It's their sacred duty to not hit me. So most of the other team is just it's 3 Kingsguard, 3 Targs, and then the Fossaway. So who else is gonna subdue Baelor if not Mykar? Because I don't think Raymond, or sorry, I don't think Stefan Fossaway is good enough to do that. I don't think, or we know Darren's gonna take the first opportunity to take a dive. He probably wouldn't want Arion fighting his brother. So
along those lines, I really loved that they kept in the line from Baelor. Brother's mace, most like. He's strong. Little simple line, just saying, in the end, his brother's strong. He's a good fighter. And it just, to me, kind of spoke of a very loving, filial relationship that they had. Not filial. Ugh.
fraternal.
Fraternal, yeah.
I know everyone's had issues with how many times can he get stabbed before he's dead, but I wonder if they laid it on super thick like that to sort of confirm within the universe that the gods do exist and did actually pass judgment.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
I've always felt like in universe that the 7 were the only gods that didn't exist.
Well, not necessarily the 7, but some god,
Well, I think I said this in our channel, but I think they're really laying heavy into how big of a beating Dunk can get, because every single novella ends with him absolutely getting his ass kicked. So, like, if you
Yeah,
started
it's
off
true.
real strong this time, the next 2 times it's more believable, you know?
Yeah, but then it's just like the specific injuries they choose to portray when doing that is kind of the problem. It's like I can believe that, like, yeah, Dunk, every time Dunk gets down, he gets back up. And, it gets to a point where, like, you can, you can beat Sir Duncan, but you can't beat Dunk from Flea Bottom. And it's, and like, as the beatdown progressive, he gets closer and closer to his breaking point where Dunk from Flea Bottom comes out. Right. But it's like when you show a guy getting stabbed in the eye and stabbed in the kidney as part of that sequence, that's a bit of a problem for me.
Yeah, that's why I kind of mentioned, like, are they trying to insinuate that there is some divine intervention, because it's a numbers game, right? Like, if you stab someone in the abdomen and you don't hit anything vital, it is possible, but is it probable? And then within one conflict, that probability continues to diminish with each subsequent stab, right?
Yeah. Well, he did get fortunate. It was on the left side, I would say. Just because right is going to go through the liver, and that's going to release a bunch of toxins, and you're done.
Yeah.
I mean, left is like where he got hits. Probably trying to remember, but I think it was kind of could have maybe dodged small intestines, or gotten them in a way that they could still heal. I don't know. Anyways, um, the one that gets me, the one that actually made me turn my head away was the knife through the hand.
Yeah.
Like, he's never going to be able to hold a sword with that hand again. Like,
Yeah.
even nowadays, if that happens with all the hand surgery and everything we can do, like, that hand is going to be incredibly stiff for the rest of your life. Um, and I don't think that's like a wound that it made sense to give Dunk. Um, and that viscerally on the screen, like, center of the that's not like something that's easy to brush off in my view, where it's not going to be an obvious like Tyrion's scar getting smaller and smaller and smaller as the series goes on.
I guess I just keep thinking about, like, Melisandre and Jon Snow, kind of like if they're trying to tie in some of that. Like, we know incredible things are possible in this universe, so they just decided to go with it. And maybe, I guess they're trying to suspend unsullied people's, like, belief in plot armor. Because other than that, it's like, okay, well, just get it over with already. It's like the one lance blow, like, for sure that needed to be there. But yeah, the rest of them are a little bit, I don't know, much.
I would attribute it again to this fake out death scene that he has. It has to have some plausibility that this man has supposedly deceased in front of us, that they're about to blow the horn and stuff. So I would say this is probably where they were intending these squishy, stabby sound effects to be leading up to.
And I think that's where I get back to like there could have been more dialogue. Like, he's fighting a treacherous dude. He's fighting a dude that does a fake yield and then takes another swing in the books. Like, is there not some room for him to, as he presses the advantage, be a little diabolical? Like, I think that just might have evened out some of the 50-100 stabs. It also just made Arian feel like he could hang with Dunk more than I think he really could. Like, in a even even in a sword fight. Like, I just think Dunk would have overpowered that little shit.
Well, and that's another thing too, is like, Dunk dead ass severed his femoral artery. Homeboy is dead. He is not getting packed off to Lys. What is that about?
Was that I was thinking about that, and I've watched it 3 times and I can't remember. Was it a slice or was it a jab?
It was a
like
solid slice.
yeah,
Okay.
like the
Yeah.
sword was in there and it was a slicey.
Yeah, then that probably
For
got deep enough.
seconds,
Because
I thought
that's the
he'd
one that
slice
made
off
me
his-
cringe.
I thought that was like his genital injury, not the femoral artery, unless that was.
Yes, me too. And I was like, oh
I
no,
was like, I did
little
not have
Nigor.
genital injury on my bingo card for today. So
Well, you should have because it's Westeros.
Great place for a prosthetic cock to just be right there.
Oh boy. So the person that sort of kicked off the trial,
What do you think's happening in the final episode? What is the fallout in the book? Is it sort of just very the immediate fallout, or does it flash forward in the book, or how does it end?
well,
I could just Google this. This is one of those things that I say where my husband's like, "That is eminently
Junk has a
Googleable."
lot of guilt
Like,
about Baylor, and when he is talking to
no
Maekar,
shit. Yeah, that could fuck
he
you
is
up.
saying, like your mace might have dealt the blow, but he died because of me. And like there's a tableau where he's watching Valar stand vigil over his dad and stuff. So there's all that, and then obviously the I imagine there'll be a big chunk of it that is the conversation about whether Dunk should go with him or not.
Yeah, so I mean, all that's really left is in the book is the funeral scene, and Valor kind of lets Dunk have it a little bit, and then the conversation with Maekar, and that's really the end of the book. Like, there's maybe one panel in the novel of them riding away. Like, there's not much, so it'll be interesting how they make an episode out of it. But I do think there's probably enough there.
Yeah, unless they do like kind of jump forward and tease the beginning of Sworn Sword. I don't see a reason to really do that though.
we could do the Green Apple next season or next episode. Better late than never, and I'd be pleased with that.
Yeah, that's probably likely actually, Steph. Like I imagine because there is a bit of that, like Raymond and Steely Pate have a little more dialogue to give that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, and like you could imagine that, like at the end of this episode, Dunk passes out too, and that, like he'll just like have like you could just like skip forward and have, like Raymond waking him up and say, "Hey, check out my new sigil now that I'm a knight."
Yeah.
Because, and also they did like they did point about like how the it takes time to paint the shield. So in that sense, like it's okay if like Raymond's not super concerned about getting his shield painted. As
Well, and Dunk
like
needs
the
his
trial
fix.
starts in like 15 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine that there'll be some parting words there with Pate and Raymond where the shields are covered. At least, I mean, one would hope.
Yeah. This is totally circling back and off topic. I just realized Dunk is like dumb Gandalf. Like everyone around him's just kind of always inspired and takes heart the way that like that's Gandalf's whole role in Lord of the Rings. Like that's the main thing that he does is help people find their courage and fight for good and all that. And Dunk's like that, except he doesn't know he's doing it. That was all.
Gandalf is my new band name.
It's the classic hero's journey, you know, and it's the Twilight thing. It's the A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is as a collection is very much the YA, besides Ice Dragon, book in the compendium. And like I gave it to my son when he was fairly young because I was like, oh, you can read this. Actually, it's there's a significant lack of incest and other, you know, deviant behavior in it. Eh,
It's very much the ganja as the entry level drug to the crack cocaine that is
right.
GOT,
So
right?
if you do end up in those classic sort of YA forward hero's journey sagas where it is a little bit of a paint by numbers, you know, you fill in the blank. It's why a lot of them are written in first person perspective. So you identify as the main character, as the reader. And George is better than that. And, you know, it isn't a first person novel, which is great, but it does have shades of that where the reader is supposed to fill in the blank of Dunk and be really connected to him. Because we all have that self-doubt and imposter syndrome to a certain degree, right? Almost we're psychopaths.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'll be clipping significant lack of incest to use against you in the future.
We can also use that for Wuthering Heights. I mean, this is a very all-purpose, all-round pod.
Any thoughts, Jock?
Wuthering Heights is so
Really
brutal.
quiet.
Also, I've heard Nuncle as thick as a castle wall in the series.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
He said it to Baelor, right? When he thought he offended him. He said, Sir Arlen used to say I was thick as a castle wall and dumb as an oryx, or whatever.
Yeah. You know what's an interesting theme that they have done with Sir Arlen is they have made him fairly silent. We haven't gotten a lot of like actual dialogue from him. And I think that's an interesting way to demonstrate the grieving process when you lose someone you love. Like when my mom died, I really quickly, and it was surprising to me, had this sense of like I couldn't remember what she looked like, which was stupid because I was spending like weeks preparing for a funeral, looking at pictures and stuff. But in my mind's eye, I felt like I couldn't place her, I couldn't hear her or see her, and it took me a while to get that back. And I think that's kind of like the shock of grief that comes on you, and especially in a world where you don't have pictures, you'd have to have a portrait painted of them, and God only knows, you know, how accurate that is. I imagine that this sort of 90% silence and it's just facial expression that we're getting portrayed as Sir Arlen, or something ambiguous like he's singing Dothraki, is sort of framing that, you know, a little bit. I don't know if they did it intentionally or not, but it's something I kind of picked up on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's kind of more to come about his nephew and where he was when he met Dunk. I think that'll be a big part of the Sworn Sword and kind of playing out that whole old grievances and the Blackfyre rebellion. Like I think we got just a couple twinges of that to set us up for next season, and hopefully showing Sir Arlen dealing with that loss at the Red Grass of his nephew, and then apparently, I mean, from the show, it happened right outside King's Landing, not long before he took Dunk on. Like he's in the throes of grief right then in their timeline. So hopefully they go back and fill that in more and we feel better about him as a character next season.
Yeah, that would be nice. Because in real time, right now, to date, it's what, like 10 days after he died, darling.
Thereabouts.
Yeah.
So that shock, I think, is still. It would stand to reason that Dunk's still just a little bit numb, and so his flashback memories are somewhat convoluted, and then a lot of them are coming in these moments of extreme stress and being put in these leadership positions that he didn't necessarily ask for. He wanted to compete in the tourney, but he didn't ask for all this bullshit, So I was just gonna say I could kind of make some excuses for the Arlen problem if that was the intention.
Yeah. It's also what's relevant to this story, right? This story is about like him showing his knightly honor and that inspiring people. The Blackfyre Rebellion and Sir Arlen's past before Dunk and all those things are more relevant in the next story. So he'll probably have memories about those then.
Just a side thought, but can we please celebrate House Beesbury for being on the right side of things 2 out of 2 times?
Yes.
100%.
Finest golden mustache you've ever seen.
Have any of you ever seen? There was like a really long GIF that went around a while back, and it was Oprah when she gave the cars away. But instead of giving the cars away, she's just like, bees! And she's throwing her hands around. And bees just show up on the screen.
Everybody gets a piece.
That's how the Beesburys should be celebrated.
It's one of the reasons I love these 3 books is because of how much we get of the minor houses. And it's just it's richer, The great houses are like this inbred mess, and I think the minor houses get forgotten a lot and don't always, when they do come in, aren't always in the best light. But I like these 3 books because it's like, oh, that's why they have value. I get it now.
Yeah. All right. Other overall thoughts on this one?
Yeah, thanks for hosting,
I'm
Kevin.
excited.
Nope. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks everybody for jumping in. Wonderful discussion. This has been Vassals of Kingsgrave. Thank you to my fellow hosts, and we will see you after the finale of season 1 of Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
Love you guys.
Riding through the reach to the Ashford Tony, trying to win a ransom at the Ashford Tony. Need to win a tilt against another knight, yeah. 'Cause I'm a hedge knight and I'll be alright if I win one fight. I say yeah, I say yeah, I say yeah, yeah. 'Cause I'm gonna ride so hard, yeah. Gonna couch my lands fine. I say yeah, I say yeah, I say yeah. Oak and iron garb me well, yeah. Else I'm dead and doomed to hell, yeah. New suit of armor and I look so good, yeah. And I'm gonna be a champ at the Ashford Tony, the Ashford Tony. I say yeah, I say yeah, I say say yeah, yeah, yeah. 'Cause I'm gonna ride so hard, yeah. Gonna couch my lands fire. I say yeah, I say yeah, I say yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh, I love a Tony, Tony. 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 I say yeah, yeah. I say yeah, 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 yeah. 'Cause I'm gonna ride so hard, yeah. Gonna couch my lands fire. I say yeah, I say yeah, I say yeah, yeah, yeah. All right.